It was March 27, 1999. The skies over Serbia were dark and stormy, a perfect cover for an aircraft designed to disappear. Lieutenant Colonel Daryl Zalo, a seasoned pilot, sat in the cockpit of his F-117 Nighthawk, the world's first operational stealth bomber. This wasn't just any plane, it was a marvel of engineering, a flying ghost, capable of slipping through enemy defenses undetected. But as Zalo prepared for his mission, he had no idea that tonight would rewrite the history books. His objective was crystal clear: penetrate deep into Serbian territory and bomb the command center of the Serbian Air Force in Belgrade. This wasn't just any target, it was the heart of the enemy's operations, the nerve center coordinating the forces tasked with stopping him. Success meant crippling the enemy's air capabilities. Failure? The consequences were unthinkable, not just for him, but for the entire mission. The Nighthawk had a spotless record. It had flown numerous missions without a scratch, relying on its advanced stealth design to evade detection. For the pilots who flew it, the plane was more than a machine. It was a promise of invincibility. But as Zalo took off that night, storm clouds gathering above, he couldn't shake the feeling that this mission was different. The weather was against him, the target was heavily defended, and he was about to find out just how fallible even the most advanced aircraft could be. Zalo wasn't alone at first. Escorting him were F-16 Vipers, agile fighter jets armed with missiles designed to take out enemy radar systems. These Vipers were his safety net, a layer of protection between him and the hostile Serbian air defenses. Together, they tore through the stormy skies, a coordinated unit on a dangerous mission. But nature had other plans. The weather took a sudden and dramatic turn. Thunder cracked like gunfire, and lightning illuminated the night sky in blinding flashes. The turbulence grew worse, shaking the planes as if trying to force them from the heavens. Then a command crackled over the radio. The Vipers were to turn back. The weather was too severe for them to continue. Zalo was on his own. Flying solo deep into enemy territory was a nightmare scenario for any pilot. But for Zalo, it was reality. His only ally now was the Nighthawk's stealth technology, a combination of unique design and radar-absorbing materials that made the aircraft nearly invisible. On radar, it appeared as nothing more than a blip the size of a tennis ball, small, elusive, and untouchable. But the question was, could this ghost-like aircraft truly remain unseen? While Zalo soared through the storm, the Serbian forces were far from idle. On the ground, Lieutenant Colonel Zoltan Downey, a highly skilled and resourceful commander, was preparing for a fight. Downey wasn't just any officer, he was a man who refused to bow to the technological superiority of his enemy. To him, the Nighthawk was a challenge, a puzzle waiting to be solved. Serbian intelligence had been working overtime, feeding Downey critical information about NATO's operations. That night, they received word of an incoming aircraft. Downey sprang into action, mobilizing his team and setting up an ambush. His weapon of choice was the P-18 early warning radar, a piece of equipment considered outdated by modern standards. But Downey believed in its potential. Operating at low frequencies, the radar had the theoretical capability to detect stealth aircraft if the operator knew what to look for. The radar came to life, sweeping the stormy skies. It wasn't easy. The weather cluttered the screen with false signals, a chaotic mess of noise. But Downey was meticulous. Among the rain and clouds, he spotted something unusual, a faint, almost imperceptible dot moving steadily through the chaos. His heart raced. Could this tiny blip be the legendary Nighthawk? As Zalo approached his target, he was focused on precision. His onboard systems prepared the bombs for release. The mission seemed to be going smoothly. But then a critical mistake occurred. Zalo opened the bomb bay doors, momentarily increasing the Nighthawk's radar signature. It was all Downey needed. He ordered his team to lock onto the plane and fire. 2 missiles streaked into the sky, their glowing trails cutting through the stormy night. Zalo dropped his bombs, hitting his target with precision. But just as he began his ascent to 6 kilometers, his cockpit lit up with an urgent alarm. He was locked on. Glancing outside, he saw the missiles racing toward him. Time slowed. He broke into evasive maneuvers, pulling the aircraft into a steep climb. The G-forces pinned him to his seat as warnings blared in his ears. The first missile malfunctioned, missing the aircraft entirely. Relief surged through him, but it was short-lived. The second missile detonated near the left wing, shredding it with shrapnel. Flames erupted as the aircraft spiraled out of control. The violent spinning threw Zalo against his seat, making it nearly impossible to move. Every flashing warning light in the cockpit screamed one thing: eject. He knew the risks. Ejecting at such speeds could be fatal, but staying in the plane meant certain death. With adrenaline coursing through his veins, Zalo grabbed the ejection handles and pulled. The canopy blasted away, and his seat rocketed into the night sky. For a moment, it felt like time froze. He free fell, disoriented and barely conscious, until his parachute deployed. The fiery wreckage of the Nighthawk tumbled away in the distance. He was alive but far from safe. The bright orange parachute made him a glaring target. Somewhere below, Serbian forces were already mobilizing. News of the downed Nighthawk spread like wildfire. Serbian soldiers, policemen, and even civilians began combing the countryside, determined to capture the pilot. Trucks rolled along nearby highways and flashlights flickered across the fields. The hunt was on. Zalo spotted a ditch on his descent and made it his landing point. Once on the ground, he covered himself in mud, blending into the terrain. Every sound around him felt like a threat. Then he heard a rustling in the undergrowth. It was a dog, sniffing closer and closer to his hiding spot. Zalo's hand gripped his survival knife. He debated his options. Could he kill the dog silently? And even if he could, would its handler be far behind? As the dog approached, Zalo made a decision that would haunt him if it went wrong. He spared the animal. To his immense relief, it turned and wandered off. Zalo's survival radio crackled to life. A rescue team was on its way, but time was running out. He activated an infrared strobe to signal the rescue helicopter. But it failed. The helicopter couldn't see him. Desperate, Zalo pulled out a flare. He hesitated, knowing the bright light would alert not just the rescuers, but the enemy too. It was a gamble, and he took it. The flare blazed brightly, illuminating his position. In the distance, he saw enemy patrols closing in, their flashlights converging on the flare. A frantic voice came through the radio. "Snuff your flare! It's blinding our night vision." Thinking quickly, Zalo buried the flare in the mud just as the helicopter swooped in. The rescue team emerged, hauling him on board. The helicopter lifted off seconds before Serbian forces reached the landing site. The Nighthawk was a technological marvel, but on that night, it met its match. Serbian forces salvaged the wreckage, pieces of which now sit in Belgrade's Museum of Aviation. Lieutenant Colonel Zalo, grateful to be alive, expressed a unique desire: to meet the man who had shot him down. 12 years later, in 2011, he got his wish. He shook hands with Sultan Dani, a moment of mutual respect between two adversaries. The story of the downed Nighthawk remains one of the most fascinating tales of modern warfare, a reminder that even the most advanced technology is not invincible.